Back-to-back MVPs for Leo Messi. We discussed the battle for future pro soccer in Cleveland. We've got so much new team and stadium news. It really is coming out of our ears. That and more on Friday's Morning Kick-Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kick-Around, where we talk about the world's game developing right here in the United States of America. My name is Robert Kerr, local soccer guy. His name is Jason Davis, radio soccer guy. And together we dot the map of the American soccer landscape, the ever-changing American soccer landscape. There's so much fractious stuff going on. It's hard to keep straight, but we will do our best. How you feeling, Mr. Davis, this morning?
I'm good. I'm ready to go. It's Friday, and we've got there's always something. I just finished up a new edition of my newsletter, which you can find at Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. Just search that in your Google machine, and you will get the website. It's over on Ghost. And I headlined it "Dot the Map" because I was writing about what we're doing here on Morning Kick Around, but just also on this sort of abundance movement. That's a loaded word in modern American discourse, but we are sort of in an abundance movement when it comes to soccer in this country. Dot the Map is the way we're processing it because it does look like these teams are popping up all over the place. Obviously, we're adding new members, MKUlras jumping in. Shout out to Josh, who is a new member of the channel. You can be like Josh for just a couple bucks a month and become an MKUltra, get access to the Discord. So much going on there. I mean, the Discord has become like the newsiest place for this stuff. People are really going out there and finding these stories, and it's things that we sometimes even miss ourselves initially, Rob. So I'm very thrilled to see that community growing.
Yeah, definitely. Plenty of action in the Discord server. $3.99 a month. Become an MKUltra. You can do that, or for free. Subscribe to Morning Kick-Around. Help us kick those numbers up, or just tell your family and friends about the show. Speaking of family, shout out to my aunts. All my aunts popped in. We're on a cross-country trip, and they came in, so good to see them. Shout out to the aunt sisters. If you are a member of the channel, or if you cruise the Morning Kick-Around channel, you see there's a couple poll questions up there. We'll revisit the results after the show, but we asked about the bell tower investments in USL. What do you think that means for the USL moving forward as we start the show? People are middling. That's a moderate boost. And then
I think people are taking a wait and see approach to that, which is probably the right mentality, right? We don't know about what that investment means. It does seem to be related to all this push that USL is making. Clearly, they wouldn't be involved if it wasn't D1, Pro Rel, abundance of clubs, that kind of stuff. But I just want to let people know we are working on getting some answers, or at least talking about what the important questions are around USL plans involving D1 and Pro Rel. We are planning some videos around those topics, some discussions. If you have questions, right? The Discord has been asked this already. The MKUltras themselves directly have been asked in the Discord for their questions. If you have questions for USL and their plans, drop them in the comments on the videos so that we can make sure we get to the right people and try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, indeed do. And we also have a question regarding the excitement level, the temperature gauge of the audience of Messi's extension and getting more Messi mania here, and more on him in a moment. But we have some goals, as always, a 5-member or super chat goal. And we might do something a little bit extra at the end of the show. So get your super thanks in there. We're already 1 in the books. Thank you to Josh for becoming an MKUltra. All right, should we get to the show?
Let's do it.
Let's get to the show. Let's kick Friday's long balls on a jam-packed episode of Morning Kick-Around. Welcome in here, long balls, as we open the show here on Friday, September 26th. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Similar to where we were this time last year when this show kicked off, we talked about Messi and becoming the MVP and maybe shutting down that conversation. I think we might be here again. Messi scoring 24 goals, 11 assists in just 23 games, racking up 2 more goals and an assist against NYCFC in his last outing. Has Leo Messi closed the case for this year's MVP? And is he going to be the league's first ever back-to-back winner?
Well, he'd be the second ever multiple MVP winner because only one player has ever won 2 MLS MVPs. And Rob, I quizzed you before the show and you did not come up with the answer. Are you still thinking about this? Do you still need a minute? You have any guesses?
So when you first posed this, I guessed one Landon Donovan. The award is named after him, but you shrugged me off. I guessed Wando. Wasn't Wando, so my thoughts are a little bit scattered at the moment, and I'm sure I could get to it, but I don't have it just yet, and it's not
Let
Beckham
me
either.
let me give you a hint. All right. This individual won his MVPs in the year 1997 and the year 2003. And I believe in the year 2003, when he won his second MVP, he was 40 years old. Do you have a guess now? Any
Was it
guesses?
Stoichkov?
It was not. No, Stoichkov never won an MLS MVP. I will give it to you because I don't know that you're going to get there. Preki. Preki won 2 MVPs in Major League Soccer. The only player to ever do that. Why it's not called the Preki Major League Soccer Most Valuable Player Award, I don't know. It's called the Landon Donovan Award. You know, Donovan was the biggest name, American name in the league for a long time. But again, only one MVP. Nobody's won more than one except for Preki, and nobody's gone back to back. And I really do believe it is over. Lionel Messi will go back to back as MLS MVP. And here's why. Okay, here's the goal numbers as they currently sit in Major League Soccer. I don't have the assist numbers, but know that he is up there in that category as well.
He's got
Messi,
11 as it stands.
24 goals, 2 more than Denis Bouanga, who's having a very hot run right now, combining with Son in Los Angeles. In fact, right now, for me, LAFC is the most dangerous team on the board in Major League Soccer, and I would be very concerned about them if you're a Western Conference team trying to come out of that division, or if you're an Eastern Conference team who might see them in the playoffs or in the final, rather. Yeah, and look at those minute numbers. Denis Bouanga, 23, almost 2,400 minutes. Lionel Messi, less than 1,000. More goals, fewer games started. Now look, Pablo is saying that they're going to give it to Messi because of marketing. The man has earned the award, Pablo. Let's not do this. Like, yes, I understand the cynicism that he's the biggest name in the league. Why wouldn't they want to give him the MVP for the marketing elements of this? But man, he's having the season you need to have to win the MVP again. And, you know, a name that's not on this goal list
Yeah,
that
I
is
was gonna
certainly going to be in people's heads, Rob, is Anders Dreyer for San Diego. And he deserves a lot of attention and he deserves MVP votes. But I don't think he's beating out Lionel Messi. Now, to Pablo's point, I don't know if it's about marketing, but the people who vote on this award are going to be swayed by the fact that it's Lionel Messi. Like, there's a popularity element to this, right? There are things that kind of they go into the big soup of what an MVP voting scenario looks like. And one of those things is the name recognition. Anders Dreyer has had a fantastic year. He deserves to be mentioned. So has Denis Bouanga. He deserves to be mentioned. Sam Surridge, who was leading the Golden Boot race for a while and may still have a shout in that race. He deserves to be mentioned. There's Ederson having a great season for FC Cincinnati. But man, Evander rather, Ederson. Evander is having a great season for FC Cincinnati. But Lionel Messi is going to win this award. It's over. It's done. C'est acabou.
You think it's a down stunk for the greatest of all right now? Because I mean, it's hard to argue against it. His just recent run, he hasn't been held off the score sheet since that bad loss on the 13th of September when they were shut out by Charlotte 3-0, and then since that quote unquote bad outing, he scored against Seattle and got an assist, scored 2 and got an assist against DC United, scored 2 and got another assist against NYCFC. So, you know, one game off the score sheet, come back with 5 goals in 3 games, which is just unreal. And I'm glad you touched on buyer there at it, or Dryer rather,
Dryer.
San
Dryer.
Diego, because I mean, that team has been such a surprise to everybody, and then he himself, as an individual, has just kind of really blown the doors off. And would San Diego be leading the Western Conference without the contributions of
No,
Andrew
of course
Dryer?
not. Right. And that's the thing. Like when you talk about valuable, we get into that debate about who's more important to the team, Andres Dryer or Lionel Messi. I mean, I don't know that really there's much separation there, but there are scenarios in which a player is not as important to his team because there are other stars around him and he has a great season and all those things. And of course, Messi plays with Suarez and has had a decent year, not the same year that he had last season, but has had a decent year. I wanted to bring one more visual aid to this argument.
Okay.
And it's this from FBref. If you are a soccer fan, you probably go on FBref every now and then. It's hopefully this is visible for everybody watching at home. But you can see this is comparing Lionel Messi to other forwards in similar leagues. So I think it says 14 similar leagues over the last year. This is the way the FBref does this percentile wise. Look at this. Non-penalty goals, expected, shots total, assist, all these. He's 99th percentile in everything in the attacking section of this except for touches, where he's only 91st percentile, and progressive passes received, where he's only 96th. But everything, and pass completion is 94. Maybe he takes a little bit of risk every now and then and doesn't complete all his passes, doesn't complete as many as some other guys. But this is bonkers. He doesn't do anything defensively, but you don't need him to. This is insane. He's the MVP, Rob.
Yeah, you kind of really have to stretch the imagination and your own personal grievances, perhaps, against them to make an argument against Messi for this. Interesting note that another poll that we've got on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel is asking what your reaction to his contract extension, to stick around longer in Major League Soccer, and 37% of the respondents said shrug emoji. So maybe a little bit of indifference coming from our poll listeners or poll respondents. Interesting to see, but definitely leading the way for the first ever back-to-back MVP of Major League Soccer, Leo Messi. Big surprise, right?
Yeah, shock that this is happening again.
All right, moving on. Long ball number 2. And this kind of speaks to one of our bigger segments later in the show, as far as all the developments happening in USL. But one of the leaders in the United Soccer League's USL Championship, Louisville, one of the first lower league teams to have their own stadium, and a really nice stadium at that. They report that they have formally applied for Division 1 status.
Yeah, this story at WDRB out of Louisville. It reads, Louisville City FC formally applied to compete in the United Soccer League's planned Division 1 Men's League. Club owner Soccer Holdings confirmed to Louisville Business First, a WDRB media partner. There's a quote in here from James O'Connor, who runs the club. He is the Soccer Holdings president. By the way, former Orlando City manager, or I think he was also the manager at Louisville for a while before moving into that executive role. We're pleased to see the league take a positive step like this, adding both investment and credibility to the organization. We look forward to taking our club and community to the next level. Now, we're noting this because it indicates that the process is moving along and that certain clubs have taken the step. Now, this is not one of those things where like there's a ton of transparency around this. This is one of our questions for USL, Rob, is how is this working? What is the process for clubs to try to get into the first division? Obviously, we know there are professional league standards that currently apply to a first division outdoor men's soccer league in America as dictated by US Soccer for it to be sanctioned by US Soccer. We have seen and heard rumors of discussions happening between USL and US Soccer around those PLS elements. And I don't know that anything is going to get changed necessarily sort of officially. We know waivers can be given. If you have too many waivers, you make a mockery of the standards. But there's something happening here. This is percolating a little bit. And of course, Louisville would have been on your list. I think it was on our list when we did our first ever video speculating about which clubs could fit into a Division 1 when USL launched it. Their stadium holds enough people. It is a professional soccer operations. I don't know about the metropolitan area number and any of that. I'm not sure I'm up on how big is Louisville. I guess that's what we need to know. How big is Louisville and the metro area?
How big is Louisville indeed? Let's get that in the chat. And I'm curious, I'd really like to get our hands on what that application looks like that the teams are filling out to apply for this first division. Is there questions outside of hitting the PLS standards? Is there like kind of an ambition question there? Like if you make it, what sort of investments will you make, or what is your vision? I'm curious if there's anything outside of like, do you hit the things that you just said? Do you have the stadium? Do you have the population?
Yes,
Hopefully, I want to see if there's anything like club specific, or do you just check the box marks that are needed for PLS standards?
Perhaps USL will have their own standards. Now, look, it doesn't really benefit USL to be too strict, right? They want to launch a first division. They don't want to be like, well, you don't have.
They're walking a tightrope of not being too restrictive, but not letting teams that are flaky in either.
Right, exactly. Like there has to be some sort of filter. You have to have some standards. You have to have a test of whether or not you can be a first division team, because ultimately they want that league to succeed and they want the clubs within it to be properly run and all those things. But as I wrote today on my newsletter, this is kind of just, again, this is a trying to kind of paper the room, just throw everything at it that you can. By the way, urban area, they have 1 million. Thank you to Bryn rather. I just looked that up as well. That's fine. They're going to be fine in that regard. I don't think they have any issues meeting that PLS. So that element of the PLS, it is, and there are things that apply to the league that don't apply to the specific city or clubs. Things like having enough teams in certain time zones and things like that, which obviously USL will either have to juggle, or maybe those are the things that are a little bit more up for negotiation with US Soccer when it comes to figuring out how to populate their league, which needs, per the PLS, again, I don't know how malleable this is, needs 12 teams in their first season.
Got a question from an MKUltra, Todd. Does this mean the pyramid starting in 2026? No, sir, it doesn't. I'd say 2027 at the very earliest, but that doesn't seem very realistic as it stands.
My guess, and I think we've seen some things that are kind of in passing mentioned here. I think we're talking, and again, part of our question for USL is, will you roll out the first division before you roll out Pro Rel? Now, and again, Soccer Night Detroit, this is what I was talking about. Pro Rel is being planned for 28, Premier Division 1 being planned for 27. They can certainly stand up the first division faster than they can work out the Pro Rel situation, right? Those mechanisms for how teams are going up and down, how many teams are doing that. Are you doing playoffs? Are you doing, what is the standard there? And again, an element of this too is if you go from the second division to the first division within the PLS, do you meet those standards? How does that, and as Too Many Burgundies has said, PLS were written with a closed league model in mind. It'll be interesting to see what USSF thinks about possible adaptation to allow for pro rel integrity. Because if you have a team that wins promotion from the USL Championship to Division 1 and their stadium holds 10,000, what do you do if the team that goes down is one of those teams that helps you meet the standard? Right? So again, how many waivers per year? Not just sort of like in general, but how many waivers each season? What kind of adaptation do you need to that point from season to season as teams go up and down?
Yeah, the fundamental structure of it all needs to be changed and reconciled, because part of the PLS is like having certain amount of teams and certain amount of time zones. And if, clubs are moving up and down around, there's no way to ensure that, there's no teams in the Western time zone or the Pacific time zone. And so, interested to see, really hope that we get some information back from USL regarding these kind of details. There's certainly a lot of unanswered questions as we stand. Moving on to long ball 3, as we're wont to do on Friday morning live shows. It's the Fab Four. We pick out the top 4 picks in American soccer to carve into your valuable weekend time. As it goes, I go second, Jenny goes third. Chat, you get your pick in for 4th. MKUlras, the members, get a little bit of priority, but you can duke it out in the chat for the most compelling 4th pick in the Fab Four. But top pick, you, Mr. Davis, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Major League Soccer. I'm a sucker for Cascadia. I know we've been doing this for years now, but and it's not the hottest one because Portland and Seattle are always playing that Cascadia rivalry is the peak of the Cascadia triumvirate. But we do have a Seattle Vancouver situation in MLS this weekend. And I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Vancouver is trying to stay in that fight for not just the top spot in the West, but also in the race for supporter shield. And they had the draw against Portland, which was a little bit disappointing for them. They needed the Brian White late equalizer to get there. They are viewing those as two dropped points because look, Portland's not as good as Vancouver. And when you have that match at home, you're supposed to win it. So they are now a point back of San Diego with a game in hand on San Diego. They are 3 points back of Philadelphia, who has a supporter shield lead at the moment. Everybody's keeping an eye on Miami because Miami has games in hand on everybody. And if they win out, they will win the supporter shield. That is mathematically a fact. So some of this is not out in your control. But man, you have a chance here against the fifth place Sounders team that really looked like they were heating up at the right time, Rob. We thought Seattle was maybe going to be the team rolling into the playoffs with all this momentum behind them. They won the Leagues Cup, all of those things. But they've lost 2 in a row now. They lost to Inter Miami in that trip down to Fort Lauderdale after the Leagues Cup with a rotated team. And they just lost to Austin. That doesn't look good. That was a late winner for Austin in Texas. So Seattle wants to get back on the winning side of things. And Ryan Gauld could make his 2025 season debut for Vancouver this weekend. He hasn't played at all. I think Thomas Mueller is back from a groin injury. Brian White is obviously back after the goal he scored midweek. So there's some things happening for Vancouver that make them very fascinating.
It's wild that Gauld hasn't played, and it's one of Vancouver's best ever seasons, and he was considered one of their best players up until now. And it's just wild, the year turnaround. When one of our first episodes we did a year ago, we're talking about, is Vancouver's time, or is the Whitecaps' time in Vancouver short-lived? Are they going to get sold? And they went from one of the most forgettable teams to one of the most interesting clubs in just one season. Out of nowhere, they're near the top of the table, had an amazing start to the season, had some tournament runs, and then they signed one of the most famous players on the planet. Wild turnaround for Vancouver in 2025. But my pick, Fab Four pick number 2, I'm going to go Major League Soccer as well. Chicago hosting Columbus Crew. This is the 8th versus the 9th in the Eastern Conference. I was at the Columbus Crew game. They drew last weekend. They drew 1-1 with Toronto. There was definitely some anxiety in the stadium last week. Columbus, obviously outstanding last year, had a pretty good start to the season this year and have kind of been waning as the season goes on. They looked very short-handed in the attacking third, and they're getting caught up by their old rival, Chicago Fire. I don't think they're like an original early days MLS rivals. I think with the addition of more teams and Chicago being irrelevant for quite some time, that rivalry has been a little bit getting a little bit dusty, but maybe rivalry renewed this weekend as both teams fight for their playoffs. Columbus trying to stay in and Fire trying to break in out of their Nowheresville.
I do think that Columbus is probably safe to at least make the top 9. Their gap on New York Red Bulls is 7 points. Now, it's possible they get caught. The Red Bulls have the Hudson River Derby this weekend, so who knows there. Obviously, NYCFC got romped by Miami midweek, so they're going to try to bounce back. But, I expect Columbus to be in the playoffs, but it is a surprise to see them drift all the way down to 8th where they would have to play the play-in game. They're not playing the level of soccer we're accustomed to for the Crew. And, Chicago they've been up and down. It's been win, loss, win, loss, win. But there is an opportunity here for Greg Berhalter and his team to not only improve their case to make the playoffs, but kind of build their confidence with that. I think it's a good pick, Rob.
All right, let's bring in producer Jenny, as we're wont to do on Friday mornings. Bring in our third pick of the Fab Four. Welcome in, Jenny. What you got for us?
Good morning, friends. I'm going to go down to the USL Championship and pick Detroit City against Louisville City. That is Saturday at 7 o'clock at Keyworth Stadium. It's always fun when these two kind of like marquee franchises in the USL get together, just to kind of see these very well-established clubs play against each other. Bit of a talent discrepancy between the two right now. Louisville City is kind of steamrolling their way towards the USL's regular season points championship. So they're going to want the points in order to secure that. Detroit City, on the other hand, you really don't know what they are. This is going to serve as kind of a measuring stick game for them where they sit against the league's elite. And two, they really need the points in the hunt for the playoffs. They're sitting in 7th right now and only really hanging on to a playoff spot by a few points there in the USL Championship's Eastern Conference.
All right. That's a good pick.
Yeah, that's a good shout indeed. And I believe Louisville knocked Detroit out of the playoffs either last year or the year before. And Jenny, give me a nod. Has Detroit ever beat Louisville? I don't think that's the case. I know they've had some high-profile losses, like the playoff loss.
I do see year. 2 wins according to Fat Mob. It has happened twice.
Games. I've been to a couple of those.
Last year, September 22nd, so just about a year ago, Detroit won at home against Louisville. So at MKUlras Stadium, there was a red card in that game for Louisville that obviously gave Detroit a little bit of an advantage, and it looks like they beat them back in 2023 as well. So once a year,
so they've gotten
once a year. Now they do it in 2025 and make their case for the playoffs.
All right, so Fab 4, that's the top 3. But the 4th pick is the chat's. MKUltras get priority, but the chat, let's see what you got for your suggestion for a top game here in American soccer. Going to the Discord server, shout out, become a member. Our goal, as it is, 5. We're one of 5 new members. Andy on screen saying USA versus New Caledonia. Not sure what that is. Is that the U20 World Cup?
Yeah, but
going
that's
to the Discord server. Ryan Schmelzer, he's shouting out Chattanooga Red Wolves versus Union Omaha. A big one in USL. I think that's League 1 there.
Yeah, it's League 1.
On screen, Portland Hearts of Pine versus Texoma, or Philly versus DC to get Philly remaining at the top. Those are
small chance.
Shouts.
Small chance I'm going to make it to Audi Field to see DC and Philly. Small chance. I still got to work. I still got to engage in negotiations, with the powers that be, if you know what I'm saying. So there's a possibility though that I could make it out to DC to see that one. And Philly. Philly's kind of scrambling a little bit, right? We got to figure out what's going on there so they can maintain their spot atop the Eastern Conference. I mean, the win over the Revs, I don't think was the kind of thorough victory you would want at this point in the season. So there's that. What else we got?
I think we got one more from Soccer Night in Detroit. He's shouting out New Mexico and Lexington, top 5 in the West. Lexington should be in the home playoff placings with a win. So that's a pretty good shout. So to pick this 4th game of the weekend, we got New Mexico, Lexington, Chattanooga Red Wolves versus Union Omaha. And I think there was another one in the mix there. There's some shouts for DCFC versus Louisville as well. Paul, he gets in the chat. Welcome on board, Paul. We got Gotham versus Portland. So there's quite a few games in here. What do you think the ultimate one is here? I mean, we're preferential to New Mexico. Lexington, maybe?
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. I guess we can make that the Fab 4. I mean, again, everybody gets their say. I do want to shout out what Paul said because Portland and Gotham are tied on points in the NWSL standings right now. So there's a battle there for jockeying for position, as we always say when it comes to playoff places and seeding. So, yeah, good stuff.
Huey shouting you out. Got to get the not the press pass, but the marital weekend pass.
There was no reason to put that on screen. Like there was no reason to say I mean, people understood what I was saying without Chris having to be so direct with it. And no, I'm actually planning on going as a fan if I go to that game. It won't be a press pass situation. So maybe even hanging out with the supporters and the supporters end at Audi Field. And if you are DC based, or maybe you're coming down from Philly or whatever, I don't look for me. I mean, I'll be there. Maybe I'll be there.
All right. The last weekend of September, the first, the first weekend of the fall. It is the Fab 4 are Seattle versus Vancouver, Chicago versus Columbus, DCFC versus Louisville, and the wonderful choices. Hard to pick one out of that bunch from the chat, but plenty of great action lined up here in North American soccer. We got about 1 minute before we're joined by a guest, so I'll remind you, we're looking for members, we are looking for subscribers, and looking for folks who just want to spread the word. I've seen a number of our MKUltras post in on Blue Sky and a couple other things, giving a shout out. Thank you, anyone, for spreading the word about this show.
We may have missed a couple of new members. I know we shouted out one already. Jason Hoover became a member within the last 24 hours. So shout out to Jason. And Jacob as well became an MKUltra. Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you guys. We
3.
appreciate it.
So we are 3/5 the way to our goal here on today's show. Let's keep it going. But we're going to turn our attention. Our next segment, we're going to talk Cleveland soccer. Get to know your district here on Morning Kickaround. Let's go. Get to know your district here on Morning Kickaround, part of our campaign to dot the map of American soccer. One of the remaining major metropolises of the United States, Cleveland, Ohio, without one of the last cities without a professional outdoor men's soccer team. And here from the existing amateur team from Cleveland FC is Baley Major. We're going to talk about the competing parties that are kind of moving in on Cleveland, the soccer district of Cleveland. But Baley, welcome to the show. Give us a lay of the land of what soccer is like in Cleveland as it is, and kind of who's trying to move in to the district with their professional soccer plans and organization.
So Northeast, like especially Northeast Ohio, can you hear me?
Yes,
First
sir.
of all,
Gotcha.
okay. First of all, Northeast Ohio has a pretty strong soccer following. We follow Prem soccer and everything. And recently, in the past 2 years, with first came MLS Next Pro and their push, but that was kind of put along with an NWSL bid. Unfortunately, they lost that, and now we're USL Pro. Or they're trying one of the professional women's leagues. They're working on building a stadium in downtown. And then just recently, there's a group led by a alumni of Cleveland State to then build a stadium, which is the current site of their indoor arena. Like the arena was built back in the 2000s. They want to tear it down and build a stadium. So there's currently 2 groups competing for pro soccer in Cleveland.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that is very interesting in American soccer. I mean, those of us who are veterans of this, Baley, we'll make jokes about soccer wars and all these things. And, we've got a couple of places in the country where there are multiple teams. We're going to see what happens in Dallas with a USL championship team starting in a couple years when there's an MLS team there. But when it's 2 lower divisions going into a place like this, I guess the first question a lot of people would have is, can Cleveland support this kind of thing? If you say it's a soccer place, then why wouldn't we imagine a big city like Cleveland could support multiple teams in multiple leagues?
The problem is Cleveland has had teams in the past, and it's hard to get people out to support soccer unless it's like the professional level. Cleveland SC, we struggle to try and get people to attend. There's usually pretty good attendance at Gold Cup matches that we've hosted in the past, US friendlies. So I would think it's just been a struggle recently, but I think the problem that you're going to get is people are going to gravitate. I think people will gravitate towards the USL name since it's professional. So it's people in their minds, they hear professional, they think, oh, that's going to be better soccer. Where if some of these people US Open Cup, it shows these professional teams don't always win, and it's not always the better soccer.
So as it stands, you are here, you work for NPSL side, Cleveland SC. There's also a USL2 team, I believe, called Cleveland Force. And so you're saying that, so there's already a little bit of a battle in that summer amateur level of play. And you said it's been kind of a struggle to get audiences out to that. So how would that translate to the pro game if the summer teams are having a hard time?
I think it's just the level of financial support teams have, where we are just a group of people working together, working off sponsorship money. Force are kind of they're an academy club, so they have already that financial backing behind it. But I really think it's finances at this level of soccer, especially with Cleveland Pro having former pros like Justin Morrow behind them. And then I don't know who USL2 has behind them, but it's just going to take money in this region because we're dominated already by like three of the four major sports in the US. We have the Browns, we have the Guardians, we have the Cavs, and the owners of all at least two of those teams are like the richest owners within those sports. So it's just going to take money and time in this region.
Yeah, that's so, when we're watching these clubs pop up in various places, Baley, I do think there's a degree of difference here because of the way, because Cleveland is a major sports city, and what USL is doing in a lot of places is going into towns that really don't have any professional sports. I mean, we were just in Albuquerque. New Mexico United is the only professional sports team in New Mexico that is quote unquote officially minor league, right? They are. We've talked about this, whether lower league is minor league, but in the sense that they're not tied to another parent organization, they're not sending their players on. And they leaned into that. As you said, in Cleveland, there's the Browns. The Browns are going to eat up all the oxygen in the room. The Guardians are good, or can be good and can get. I just, that part of it is, does that make it too hard, or is it always worth going back to this? You talked about the history. I remember writing about the Cleveland Stars. That was a wild time.
Oh yeah, the Cleveland Stars, old before my time of really following soccer, but
that's what I mean.
Around
You're actually a good example of somebody who doesn't have a memory of a failed team in Cleveland, and that was a different era of lower division soccer in America. And whatever you want to make about the corporate money coming in on the USL side and the new investment from Bell Tower and what this is, and as we've written about it and talked about it, that there is just this push to go into every little town and work out a stadium deal and all that stuff. Cleveland seems different, but that it just is so wild that there's not something that can at least crack into that soccer market. If I guess what you're saying maybe is, if it's not major league, then Cleveland sports fans will reject it.
That's kind of what I'm saying. That's my point with like MLS Next Pro versus this new USL team, which I'm thinking is going to be like either USL Championship or that new professional level they want to launch. And once they hear the word pro, I'm thinking I think they'll have the advantage when it comes to that, because we have minor league hockey and Cleveland fans support the Monsters okay, but again, they don't get that great of attendance, and unless they're in the playoffs.
One of the things when we spoke earlier, putting this together, I thought was interesting is obviously there's already a soccer culture there. There's some amateur teams there, and then there's some outside money and efforts to put pro teams there. What are these separate parties, the USL bid and the MLS Next Pro group? What are they doing to ingratiate themselves to the existing soccer community?
Yeah.
The USL group hasn't really done much, but I think they've popped up more recently, so I'll see what they do. The Next Pro group, they've done a lot because they also want to start a women's pro team. They're kind of like going out in the community. They're working with a local women's owned sports bar, doing a lot of good stuff with them, and then have also started like an outdoor kick around tournament. Like, they bring together best amateur teams in the region, and we play Brazilian basically style street soccer, which is probably like the coolest soccer event which has happened in Cleveland in years.
So that's interesting. So MLS Next Pro group is definitely like on the ground doing events, trying to like plant some seeds.
Right.
But you mentioned that they had one of these groups had even offered some operational assistance to you.
Yes. The next pro group, it's on the ground level, so I don't know how much they really want me saying, but what they want to do is to support either local men's amateur semi-pro level clubs like ours. There's other clubs like Ohio City, which are in like a local regional league, and other teams that want to pop up, or youth clubs that just need that extra little push that don't have the help that they might as well need, and it's good to see. I want to get this going with them, and I think it could be what pushes them over because they're really backing the local
Yeah.
community.
Well, that's the part of it. And I think so. I'll bring in a comment from Soccer Night in Detroit. Personally and logistically, I would rather see Cleveland get a USL club over MLS. I would love to see the Rust Belt Derby get renewed. And Rob, you've got a team popping up in your neck of the woods, right, in Michigan, that is going MLS Next Pro rather than USL. And again, in that sort of soccer wars mentality, people are going, well, why would you want to be part of MLS's thing and be Next Pro, which is professional, sure, but it's clearly, like NBA D League developmental kind of stuff. Like, why would you want to choose that path when you can be in a league like USL that is not, independent and has its own, sort of character to it? And I don't know, like it, but if the MLS Next Pro group is doing the work, Baley, then they may win hearts and minds, and that's probably more important than what league you play in.
And I really think that's going to be the case overall in Cleveland. Like initially in my mind, as we've been talking, it's the pro level thing, but I mean, my mind could be changed where, Next Pro is boots on the ground. USL has that pro name, but I mean, I'm excited to see what happens over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely interesting times in this developing landscape across the United States. But in Michigan, it was Detroit had a huge rivalry in the NPSL days against Grand Rapids, but Grand Rapids has come out as an MLS Next Pro team. But obviously they're trying to be helpful in the Cleveland area, the MLS Next Pro side. Are there any nearby MLS Next Pro teams that might garner some sort of a crosstown rivalry, or is there any sort of connections between teams in that division?
I think in Next Pro, our best rivalry will be like Crew 2, because if you look at like the landscape of the Next Pro teams that are just direct second teams, personally, I've interacted with them because I am a Crew supporter myself as well. They probably have the best like grassroots support of a Next Pro team that's not, an independent club. So I feel like they would actually be kind of a fun rivalry. It wouldn't be, get heated, as you would say, like if they played like, if the USL team plays Pittsburgh, because the historic Cleveland. That's my thought, is that I mean, even I think we even have had some good local rivalries which could pop up depending on how the support goes.
Yeah. A couple of things that are coming in from the chat, right? So Chris is saying, and I put this on the screen already, but I'll do it again. MLS Next Pro is monetarily so much of a less of an investment than USL. There's no promotion relegation, which we do expect to come to USL. There's so much less of a reason for an investor to invest in USL than MLS Next Pro. I don't know if there's any other factor that matters more than it takes more money to invest in USL. Like your franchise fee is higher in USL than it is in MLS Next Pro. I do think there's a question, and the problem that we have here, Rob, in this country is that these are independent businesses operating in their own best interests. They're not looking outside of their individual organization and going, well, we shouldn't do that because that would hurt soccer. They're only going to operate in their own best interests, right? Even USL doing what it's doing with all these new teams and Pro Rel and First Division is about what's in their best interest, growing their business, making more money. As fans, we have to interact with it on that level and be aware that this is not about like what's good for the game. So when the team in Cleveland ends up as a Next Pro team, or a Next Pro team ends up in Cleveland, and people go, well, I don't know if this is great, right? As Mike says, the farm team group of teams on the schedule is the biggest strike against MLS Next Pro independent teams. It's a tough sell. Is that something we should care about? Like is any team succeeding in Cleveland better than no team succeeding in Cleveland? I guess is the question. I don't know.
Ooh. Personally, I think Cleveland is due for some higher level soccer. And honestly, personally, like, I could say, this is how they'll succeed, but Cleveland fans, they'll do whatever they do. And I think honestly over time you'll see those next pro clubs that are rebranding their second teams, or they're gonna that I think there are some teams out west, which I think Galaxy's second team is under a different name. If I'm mistaken. I think you'll see more of that. I don't know if I could be wrong though, but I think
No,
that'll
not
help.
the Galaxy, but you got Seattle with Tacoma Defiance, and this is something
Yeah.
interesting about this the way MLS is now doing this with Next Pro, which I think they rethought their strategy around having a reserve league. Right, initially it was just initially clubs had identities that were separate from their parent clubs. You had Bethlehem Steel, right, in Pennsylvania. You had, again, Tacoma Defiance was an example of this, or a couple of other teams that had separate identities. Swope Park Rangers for Sporting Kansas City, because they played at Swope Park, which is the training ground for Sporting Kansas City. Then the league was like, no, this is a reserve league. All of these teams need to have the same names as their parent clubs, and everybody became a 2 or a B or whatever. And now we're seeing sort of like a switch back to maybe this idea of, we want this league to stand on its own as a competition, and we want to bring in Cleveland where are the other independent teams in Next Pro right now? I'm having trouble.
Chattanooga and Carolina Core.
Carolina Core, right? Which is that project as well. And what are the ultimate end games for those clubs? Do they want to be independent clubs that sort of represent their communities in the same way an MLS team does? Because you choose a path based on maybe your ambitions here. But again, money is a factor. So I don't know. I think MLS is caught in between with this league, and I don't love it, but I get it from an investor perspective that, hey, it's easier to get a team launched in MLS Next Pro than it is in USL.
And I do have, before we part ways, I do have a question I'd like to put to you, Baley, because you are in a unique perspective, being someone in the soccer scene in Cleveland with Cleveland SC, and also being a Columbus Crew fan, which is a couple hours away. In the springtime, there was a Columbus Crew versus Inter Miami game in Cleveland. So someone with, in the soccer scene in Cleveland, but also a fan of Columbus, how did you feel about that whole arrangement of playing an MLS game in Cleveland?
We got to remember, soccer is a business at the end of the day. We may love our clubs, we may want to be a part of them as fans, but the owners are going to make decisions to make money. The the Haslams own the Crew, and they own the Browns, and they had that opportunity to play the game in a bigger stadium, which that was a business decision. But personally, from a fan perspective, even though I live closer to here, I don't think it was the right move fan wise, because people always then said, let's play at the Horseshoe, but the Horseshoe is too small for a regulation sized field. They did play a friendly there this summer, but FIFA had to okay it in a sort of weird way. But I didn't like it. Money grab, didn't like it, because I'm more of that, fan first, but it's a business.
Yeah.
Cleveland in the crosshairs of this land war, or soccer war, if you will, here in the United States. Baley Major from NPSL side, Cleveland SC, thank you so much for joining us, giving a little bit of boots on the ground insight into the soccer scene, getting to know the district of Cleveland soccer. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed this interview or others, be sure to become a member of the channel, become an MKUltra. We have, I think, 3 or 4 out of the 5 needed to do an extra little thing for the supporters.
Soccer Night in Detroit throw us $4.99 on the channel as well. So, major question: USL or MLS for Cleveland? I mean, again, we're talking about lower division stuff here. I think everybody could imagine Cleveland as a proper top division league city. Now, again, maybe there's going to be 2 first divisions in this country, Rob, in which case I'll let you pick your flavor. But, if you were just if you weren't looking at it too closely and you're like, okay, what's the biggest soccer league in America? That's MLS. Should Cleveland have an MLS team? Why has that not yet happened? That is certainly in the air, I think. It's for Cleveland, it's for Phoenix, which I think are the 2 biggest markets that don't have MLS teams. It's out there as a question. And in this country where everything is more complicated, and there's not really, you can't just launch a team and then gain entry to the top division through winning your way up, at least not yet. this is the thing we talk about.
Yeah, interesting times indeed. We shall see how it all plays out for the future of pro soccer in Cleveland. Hang on there just a minute there. We got one more segment this week. We're going to take our breath, sip a bit of coffee, and come back with soccer under construction here on Morning Kick Around. Soccer under construction here on Morning Kick Around, and between the Discord server for Morning Kick Around available to channel subscribers or channel members and our news feeds, there has just been announcements of teams and stadiums just like coming out of our ears.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to parse through that. There are some, like we talked to Boise the other day, they've been, they're 12 years into their planning. Some of these other ones are just, kind of precursor announcements of interest or intent. And so we've got kind of a bullet point of new ones. And we want to ask how realistic these new proposed city plans or stadium and soccer team plans are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay. I think, let's be clear, neither you nor I are on the ground in these places to have a firm grasp on how serious any of these people are. I think it is interesting to see USL making these announcements, I think almost in a bid to kind of test the waters, or you're kind of trying to grow interest, get people excited so you can go, okay, I do think this can work. And obviously for these cities, for these towns, this phenomenon of these smaller cities, these smaller towns, some of whom might have been or still are minor league baseball towns, getting a chance to have something that is their own, that is, connected to a game that has clearly grown by leaps and bounds over the last 25, 30 years, right? You have leaders, city council people, mayors, aldermen who grew up in a world where soccer was normal. It was part of the sports culture. It may not have been the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, but it still was there. You were playing FIFA, you were watching the Premier League, you're watching the Champions League. Major League Soccer has been a constant presence for 30 plus years now. So we've been normalized to this idea of soccer as a thing that happens in America. And what USL is doing is going to these places via the 70 cities list that we heard Justin Papadakis talk about, and going, hey, you've got a place that you can build a stadium. It'll cost you a couple $1 million. We'll find an investor. They'll pay for half of it, or they'll pay for 3/4 of it. All you got to do is, give us some tax breaks or whatever. We'll pop up a stadium and you can have your own soccer team. We called this the team in a box when we were in New Mexico. It kind of became the phrase. And I think that minimizes the work, but it's definitely kind of the vibe. So Brownsville, Texas. We've already talked about that one on the channel, and we had some people kind of raise their eyebrows. Brownsville, Texas. But why not Brownsville, Texas? Why not that place? There are definitely soccer fans there, right? How many fans do you need to draw to make that successful? Now, Brownsville, in a world where there's no pro rel, Brownsville kind of becomes, they're a third division soccer city. There's a third division place, and they stay there, and they work in that, they're Texoma, for example, which is, in a part of Texas most people don't even pay attention to. And they may be moving. I don't know. It's still up in the air. But they may be that. Now, in a world with pro rel, it is interesting to imagine Brownsville moving up. If you asked me right now, based on what we know about Brownsville, whether or not they're going to get a team, the intentions of USL, I'd say there's a pretty decent chance this is going to happen. I just don't know what the timeline is, Rob, because that's the part about this. You have to do the work. You have to sow the seeds. You have to get connected to the community.
Indeed. So some of the names of cities recently announced interest and some sort of a movement towards a USL side. We got Reno, Riverside, Firestone, Colorado, and one we didn't talk about in the rundown, but Pensacola, Florida, even getting into the mix here.
Yeah, so, Pensacola, a couple months ago, Justin Papadakis went on television in Pensacola, I think, to talk about potentially putting a team there. My dad lives in Pensacola, so this has been a week of
A
soccer
lot of
connections in my
familial
family.
connections. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got families in like all corners of the United States, huh?
We spread out. We spread out. There's 5 of us. I got one. My sister lives near Boise, just down the road from where the stadium's going to go up in Boise, or is going up in Boise. My mom lives just south of Greenville, South Carolina. We talked about their medieval Italian Renaissance looking stadium plan,
Yeah,
which has gotten a
shout
lot
out
of
to
attention.
some good reactions to that. That was an interesting story, and can't wait to see that Greensville Stadium, the Rensen of soccer stadia.
Yeah, Greenville, South Carolina. Greenville. You got to say it like that. Greenville, South Carolina.
Brr.
And then my dad lives in Pensacola, so maybe I'm going to have a team in all these places, a professional team in all these places when I visit. My brother's in Charlottesville, Virginia. I don't know if there's any plans for Charlottesville to get a soccer team, but that'd be cool, like in that area. Look,
Not-
Brownsville. You mentioned Riverside. Riverside's interesting because that's the Inland Empire that is to the east of Los Angeles. That is a very densely populated place, right? There, my buddy Jared Dubois, I do the best soccer show with, lives in Ontario, which is a little further to the west from Riverside. And I checked, it's about 25 minutes, but from his house to where the stadium might be built in Riverside, they're in the early stages, but they're making an announcement. They're trying to gauge excitement. I think there are fans there, but again, the devil is in the details as to whether or not you get this off the ground. Riverside seems like a place that should be able to support a soccer team, right? Some sort of professional outfit. Again, level. Are they going to have a 35,000 seat stadium? No, probably not. But can they build something and do something there in Riverside? Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Reno. Let's get to Reno for a second because
There's some history there.
a conundrum. They've had multiple teams run through Reno and it has not worked out. And in every case, this has been about stadium location, stadium building, proper home for the team. So this is newly announced. And again, this is what's interesting about the reaction locally. Like we talked about this with Memphis, right? Memphis has the USL 2 team going into a soccer complex there in suburban Memphis. And our guy in northern Mississippi was telling us about this. It seems as though the local news can't really figure out how to process these announcements. In Memphis, they were calling it pro soccer, and I was like, really? Is it semi-pro maybe? In Reno, they're saying the return of soccer to northern Nevada. Now, they're announcing it as Reno to get a pro soccer team as Reno Pro Soccer announced stadium project. Is this down the road far enough that they're going to build this, that this is done, signed, sealed, delivered? Because if that's the case, then Reno's going to be on the map. And again, they failed a couple times already. So is this different?
Yeah, it's hard to say from here. The story I'm reading from Channel 2 in Nevada is talking about a Jones West Ford site. It closed down, and now there's a vacant property set to be redeveloped. And this plan is to, in this news story, is talking about they're want to redevelop a closed down facility to put in a sports and entertainment district that includes a soccer specific stadium, one meant to house a USL Pro team. Outside of that, it's a quote from Justin Papadakis: USL continues to expand into the West. We're excited about the potential of bringing pro soccer to northern Nevada. Goes on to say Reno is one of the fastest growing mid-sized cities in the country with a passionate soccer fan base, and just a little bit of more boilerplate there. So not necessarily too many hard line details of this is exactly what we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
There's not too many hard facts in there, but definitely opening the possibility. It's another thing of, find a possible real estate deal, find a party that's like interested in soccer and there, and then go. Seems to be kind of the plan in some of these cities. Like we got a tentative people interested in running it, a tentative place to put a stadium. Let's try to garner some support and maybe some legitimate ownership.
This location in Reno is not downtown. Now, I'm not going to be an expert on Reno geography, but it does not seem to be, close to what you would call the downtown area of Reno. I know Reno is probably one of those places that's a little spread out. It is out west and there's lots of room. So we'll see. Again, it's a former car dealership. It's a car dealership site that has been shut down. The people involved include Todd Davis, Shout out to Davis out there doing work in soccer. Local entrepreneur, investor, background in professional soccer, a guy with some history, right? Wendy Damonte, former evening news anchor who spent 21 years at KTVN TV in Reno. She's involved. John Doyle, former U.S. international defender. He was an executive with the Quakes for a long time. He's involved. So there's some soccer people involved. They're looking for identity suggestions. So you can go to renoprosoccer.com to get their updates and maybe get your thoughts in about what the name of this team should be in Nevada. But, again, I'm a little cynical because of the history of that place as a soccer town. Reno 1868, came and went.
Mm-hmm.
Could this be something that does work? And again, so much of this is predicated on having a place to call your own. You control revenue. You have roots in the ground. People look at the stadium and go, oh, that's the soccer team. That's where they play. They're in their head. They're a permanent thing because they have a stadium. Now, we have not talked about, and here's the one that is oddest to me, Rob, because I don't think I've ever heard of this place. And that's wild because my family is from Colorado. My mom and my dad are from Colorado. I've not lived there myself, but I am vaguely aware of some of the geography of Colorado. And I had not heard of Firestone, Colorado. Now, this is, though, part of a general region of northern Colorado between Denver and Fort Collins. Fort Collins is where Colorado State University is, where there has been efforts. Northern Colorado's hailstorm plays in this general area. Now, they still exist. They're not in USL anymore. They got kicked out because they didn't have their money right. But that's the thing. This other deal of like, okay, where can we find the stadium? Maybe Firestone as a locality has an appetite for working a deal that allows USL, when we talked about the team in a box, to go find the investment post working out some of the stadium exploration.
Yeah, indeedly do. With that, and we'll see about that. And you brought up the hailstorm, and it is good to note, or I think important to note, that with this rapid expansion and the excitement of all the possibility of new teams and all these different cities getting a crack at pro soccer or a renewed crack at pro soccer, there are teams falling off from USL every year still. I think there was the hailstorm and at least one more. Memphis delayed or shut down operations. And so while it seems like add 5, lose 2 or 3 seems to be kind of the ratio, and curious to see, will there be a year where all the teams stay 100% from year now to the next year?
No.
Never?
And look, no, I don't. I think there will always be. This is still soccer in America, right? This is still. I think we are in a different era of awareness. But so much of this again hinges on the efforts that the people involved put into this. The reason we highlight Portland Hearts of Pine, the reason we talk about Chattanooga FC, Detroit City, name a club that has captured the attention, or even some of these places that don't really jump off the page in terms of geography. The reason they work is because the people involved have done it, quote unquote, the right way. Now, I think that flattens it out and kind of misses the details. And there's maybe there's more than one right way, but the clubs that succeed have a stadium that they can play in, make their own, at least on match day, right? Money has to work in order for this to be successful and these clubs to be viable, right? This has to work. This is throwing a lot of things against the wall to see what sticks. And some of these things will not stick. We're not going to have all of these. So I would prefer that a club never launch than play for 2 years and die. But you could also make an argument that you got to at least try. And if you don't try, if you don't launch, you don't play games, you don't know if it can work. And we kind of can't even know if you've done it the right way until after you've launched. And sometimes, how many restaurants go out of business in the first year? Like 60% or something insane, right? Sometimes you don't even know until you start. And then it's, oh, well, this didn't work. You can have all the projections you want. You can't really be sure until you put your product out there. So I'm actually kind of making peace. And again, I wrote this on my newsletter today. Go read it. Jason Davis, Soccer Eagle. That I've kind of made my peace with this approach, because at some point you're going to have to say F it and go for it. Now, the VC money, right? This thing that Andrew's talking about,
Bell tower thing.
The bell tower thing, the vibes that are around this. USL is positioning itself to be bought by MLS or bought by somebody else, or this is all kind of corporate money plays and all that stuff. We don't like that. As fans, that rubs us the wrong way. That gives us this oogie, yucky feeling. But man, I don't know if beggars can be choosers, right? So we can't be looking at this and go, well, we have to do it exactly the right way or we don't want it, when there's really no other way for it to happen in America at this point. So dot the map. See how many of those dots stay there. Again, some of them are going to fall off. And I don't want that. That will always be a tragedy every single time a soccer club dies. It will be sad. But if we get 3 out of 6, 3 out of 8, 4 out of 9 to stick around and keep going, and once established, build something. And for me, a lot of that is just get more soccer fans, get a league that can succeed as a whole, work out pro rel, and have academies so that any kid, any half decent young player has a professional academy to be attached to and can find a way to become a professional in a way that helps him maximize his potential. Because when we talk about why we're not a soccer nation that can win a World Cup, that's the reason. Like we don't keep score, or we teach the wrong tactics, or we do whatever it is. Like, what we can talk about all those things, and some of them do matter, and that approach matters. But until every mid-sized town in America has a soccer academy for professional pathways for players, we're not going to even come close to reaching our potential, and we're certainly not going to be a World Cup contender.
That's a great point with the academies, is how many great players just don't even step into the player pool at that top professional level. You live in a state, a city, a region that doesn't have any sort of academy type of place to go, or you're caught up in, you are a player that's excellent, but you're in a catchment area for a team who doesn't necessarily value, like, as the structure is, how many players are we missing ultimately? With more teams and adding more academies, potentially, more possibility to catch some good talent, make a clear pathway for a domestic player. If you track the pathway for how an American kid can become a professional American soccer player, it is no clear path. And
right. No,
it's
come up in the chat today. It's come up in the chat today. And I've been listening to Eric Winalda talk about it on the radio entirely too much, that, everybody thinks their way is the best way. So what you have, and again, rivalry can sharpen edges, and competition can be effective as a way for one better idea to rise to the top. But what we tend to do in this country is Club A is like, well, we want to dominate the market. Let's go get the best players. And then that way we can charge the parents more money. And then you have a bunch of kids who shouldn't be in that academy, but are, because their parents are willing to pay the money. And ultimately that club is a money-making enterprise. And then somebody else goes, well, that academy's screwing it up. We're going to do our own academy. And now we're siphoning off kids. And we have a different organization that we're attached to as an umbrella. And again, somebody said something about, you don't even have in single states one funnel for any of this. It's multiple paths, multiple funnels, and we constantly think our way is the better way. Now, in lots of countries where the game is king, there is no impetus to start your own thing. That would be insane, to start your own thing outside of the existing structures, outside of the established clubs. And in most cases, again, the countries are small enough and the professional outfits are dense enough that kids don't have to think about it. If I grow up in Dusseldorf, I'm going to go play for the Academy of Dusseldorf. Of course I'm going to do that. We do have some of that in MLS cities, and MLS clubs are taking different approaches. Some of them care about developing players. Some of them don't. Some of them are engaged with the local youth scene. Some of them are not. Some of them have alienated the local youth scene. All of this is complicated, right? So my thought here is the simplest thing to do is simply have as many professional teams as possible. Because you can't have an academy run by a professional team in a given location unless you have a professional team at the top end of their organization, at the senior level. And so let's do that. Let's make this as abundant as possible by whatever means possible. And yes, there will be some sacrifices made, and some clubs won't make it, Rob, and there will be complicated relationships to work out. But I don't know what the better idea is right now.
So you're okay with so we're dotting the map here, and new teams popping up, dotting the map across the United States. And I saw a comment on one of the videos is it looks like they're dotting the map in pencil. Are you saying that you're okay with that? Some of these teams
I
are
mean,
circled in on the map in pencil
but
rather than
again,
pen. It
what's the
might be fewer.
alternative? What's the alternative that we sit there and, well, how much money do you have in your bank account? How many, like, you have to have season ticket deposits before we let you be a club? Like, what is the measure of that? Right? USL is doing their vetting, and maybe their vetting is not strong enough for some people's liking. And again, some of these clubs will die because they were never set up to succeed in the first place. Maybe some clubs never get off the ground. I included the story of Charlie Davies in my newsletter today, which you can go read at the Blazing Musket or watch the conversation he had with the kickback committee about him trying to start a team in New Hampshire, getting linked up with an investor he thought was going to back this USL League One team in New Hampshire, only for it to all fall apart because that person was shady. Now, the USL is saying they got together on their own. We had nothing to do with that. And Charlie's saying, no, they helped me find that person, and it all fell apart. So again, it's not going to be clean and simple and easy and work right every single time. And I'm not even sure I completely trust the USL. But who else is doing it, Rob? Who else is doing it? And I don't want MLS turning our lower division structure into a farm league. I don't want that. So MLS Next Pro is not it for me. So what is the alternative?
That's a good point. And, alongside our dot the map hashtag, I would say not your farm team is a good one to go, because I certainly don't want North American soccer or soccer in the United States to turn into the hockey or the baseball systems where everyone in the lower league teams or the minor league teams are working for their way up to some other city to play or represent a different place. And, not real games competing for real prizes at all. And something with doing this show and working through this is these press releases, you kind of start to notice the red flags of it all. Like, how soon are they starting? I feel like if there's like a 6-month turnaround and they're trying to go from 0 to 100 in like less than 2 years, that's an instant red flag. Not having a specific group or some sort of foundational thing there, that's a red flag there as well. But because I think leaning back on, like the Cascades and the Boise's, who appear like they're set up well, they kind of had a foundation that was already there. But, teams like Reno and whatnot, the history there is they have some teams that have come and gone and a place that they might be able to turn into a stadium. So some of these are not the same as others in any way.
And I understand a natural amount of cynicism and skepticism is going to come with this. Right. Again, I have it too. I look at some of these and go, yeah, okay, sure. That's that's gonna happen.
Adding density. We need to add density.
And I think again, just because of the pure volume that USL is engaged with right now, because of the 70 cities comments and because of some of these towns that are popping up, and because they've labeled Justin Papadakis chief real estate officer. It's easy to go to a cynical place and go, this is all a ploy. This is all a way to squeeze money out of soccer. And we all think of ourselves as protectors of the game, Rob. As fans, it's our game. How dare you, sully the name of our sport by trying to make money off of it? But again, in this country, in this moment, with our history, I don't know another way. So again, you either go, I don't want any of this because it's all tainted, or let's see what happens, and I will reserve judgment and go ahead and do whatever you're going to do, and I'll just be over here waiting to see how much of that succeeds.
Yeah, I don't want to be too kumbaya, but it almost puts the impetus on the people. Is there truly interest there? So if maybe it is a Reno or something like that, it would be the people on the ground, the fans or supporters, to whatever the leadership or the ownership might be, to show that support and rally and do whatever they can to kind of fill in those gaps and to make it a successful thing.
We're all making bargains with our relationships to all of this, to professional sports, period, to college sports now, period, to, the World Cup, Rob. Do we have time to really unpack how I'm supposed to feel about the World Cup right now? What I'm talking. I don't even have to go into it.
Did we get to 5 new members?
I think
there's a lot of World Cup stuff coming along.
I think we're short one contribution. Soccer Night Detroit was already a member and gave us a little bit of extra money, so that's 4. With one more, and I will rant about the World Cup. I will for the members. I
'Cause there's
guess I
some
don't
fun
know.
things and some really bad things going on with there. There's like the climate report. There's the Trump stuff with the moving the cities, but there's also mascots to kind of maybe do a mascot review.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I'm too tired.
We'll wrap up this segment about dotting the map. How realistic are these new cities mentioned? We shall see, but not all of these announcements are created equal.
Yeah, I'll throw it. Let me throw in one more thing. I know this is the way my brain's like, don't stop. Ronald is saying we need to figure out a way to start supporters trusts. I will again refer you to what Peter Wilt wrote up 10 years ago with his manifesto that we reviewed on the channel, on the show. He has ideas that would push us in that direction. Whether we can make them happen is obviously the big question. Oh, look, we got a
Hey.
5th member. I got a 5th one. Pablo, thank you very much, Pablo. We appreciate you becoming an MK Ultra. So, yeah, let's end the show proper, Rob. You can give us a goodbye. We'll play the outro, and maybe we'll come back and talk a little bit about some other topics if you want to do a little bonus for people.
Yeah, I think a bonus would be nice. I think we're on a roll. I think we have like a 3-hour episode going at this point, but we got to end it at some point. So thank you to all of our new members and contributors. Thank you so much for getting on board here with Morning Kickaround, assisting us in our mission to dot the map. Check out socials at MKickaround on X, Instagram, Twitter, and even TikTok now, if you can believe it. Shout out to a Travel Football Fan. Our stuff connected to him on TikTok and Instagram's done pretty good. And you can also get involved on coffee.com/morningkickaround. And plenty of more. And the Morning Kickaround Discord server, one of the big benefits of becoming a channel member, the Discord channel has popped off, and there was so much news going on in there. I actually, like I said at the top of the show, it was coming out of our ears. But be sure to check out great weekend of action, the Fab Four. We touched on all that. So hang on for the bonus. But if not, see you Monday. And until then, enjoy your soccer. All right, here we are. Back at it. Bonus segment of Morning Kickaround. Someone put the toe in the water talking about World Cup developments. We got some fun stuff, and we'll start off with that. There's 3 mascots being introduced for the World Cup, which kind of like the renderings. We don't often review mascot renderings, but those kind of had a Sega Genesis character sort of vibe to it. But
yeah, you want to pull those up? Do you want to see those? You want to look at those first before we go? And we can also throw in this as a bonus as well, Rob. You and I think some other people may have found a leaked soccer badge for a new club, so we can maybe review that just a little bit on this episode, on this bonus episode as well. So let me throw in this image of the mascots for the World Cup. Oh, it's not going to work for me. Give me a second. I'll find a way to do it. So, do you have the names? Do you have the background? Do you have the story for the mascots? Or
there is a triumvirate of mascots, not just one. And I saw people shouting out wanting to get Striker back from World Cup 1994, and I got to say, one of them lives in Metro Detroit and came to an Oakland County FC game, which was the highlight of the 2024 season. But on the left, in the red, which I understand now that I see it on screen, 3 for each of the host countries, so that makes sense. So you'd think the one on the left representing Canada, that is Maple. Representing Mexico in the middle is Zavu. And do you know the name for the American one? Did you look at the name for it?
Yeah, that is Clutch, the eagle. Clutch, which is such a weird name. I guess that's like a reference to being clutch in soccer or in sports. But it also like, don't you have like
and clutch,
like a clutch of eggs? Don't you have that as well? And then also, I just had transmission problems.
You don't. Those are bad.
Yeah, Maple, Zayu, and Clutch. Those are the mascots.
The eagle. So did I say the V wrong? This is Zayu, not Zavu.
There's no V. It's Zayu. Is what it is.
Geez Louise.
Yeah, Zayu the Jaguar. The Jaguar. The Jaguar's cool. I don't know how Mexican fans feel about the Jaguar. The Moose, I mean, they could have gone with a bear for Canada too. They got a lot of bears up there. I don't know. And then the Eagle though is very on. It's like very on the nose. Like I feel like I know Striker was cool because Striker was a dog. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, Rob. I don't know how I feel about this.
This is the lighter side of the recent World Cup related news. So, do you agree with me that this looks like N64 or Genesis type graphics for this rendering?
Yeah, I mean they do have that vibe. They have look. If you have a child under the age of, I would say 6 or 7, every show looks like this. Every show that your kid watches looks like this. It's the style. I mean, obviously these are anthropomorphic animals, but somebody pointed out on Blue Sky that this looks like Spirit Rangers. If you know that show, it's got that kind of. It's got that vibe. Like they're kind of animals who do stuff and they talk and all those things. So I don't know. Sure. There's a video that goes with this, by the way, which we're not going to play. Go look for it. It's, it is what it is. It's probably not for us. And they probably will have a television show and my kid probably will watch it. And I don't know. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be good.
Maybe it'll be good. So as far as other news, there was the climate report that came out saying that a majority of the host cities are already facing weather that might breach like human rights or something like that are going to face heat conditions non-conducive for humans to do exercise.
Yeah, this is one of those things that we actually need to chase down. Is I was in contact with somebody who wanted us to actually talk to an expert on this issue, that they've written up this report. Footballforfuture.org has written up a report called Pitches in Peril: How Climate Change is Threatening Football from World Cup Stadiums to Grassroots Pitches. You can download this report. So if you're interested in the climate change elements of what's going on in the World Cup next year and in general, go over to Football for Future. We will work on getting this expert on the show. I'm not sure why we haven't linked that up. I think it's just one of those like missing communication kind of things, but it's comprehensive. Oh, you can hear the pages turning, I think. Can you hear the pages turning as I do that? Or is that just me?
That was me adding some notes here, furiously adding some notes turning.
No, okay. I thought maybe you guys could hear this, these pages turning.
I can hear that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the PDF. It's very well done. It's very visually, it's very engaging. So, yeah, go read that. That's a problem. Like climate change is a problem. The president of the United States threatening to move games because of whatever his political agenda is a problem. Now, here's my issue with that, Rob, as it came out yesterday. Will it happen? Probably.
Will the World Cup or the changes?
The changing of venues because blue cities or whatever, like that was the thing yesterday politically, right? Will it happen? I don't think so. Like logistically, it's an insane thing to even think. But of course, it bothers me that the president is saying these things. Again, he's tying the sport I love, the event that is most important to my fandom, right? The event that helped turn me into a soccer fan, the World Cup. He is connecting that to the politics of the day, to his particular issue with all of these cities that he doesn't like because they're run by people that are on the opposite party, that are from the opposite party. And again, referencing Chicago, when Chicago doesn't have games because Chicago passed on FIFA's constraints around the tournament and the money that they're going to.
Chicago was quick to be like, I'm good on the FIFA World Cup. And that was decade ago or so by now. And yeah, all the constraints and the onerous requests that FIFA makes is pretty unrealistic, and Chicago dipped out pretty quick.
Yeah, they did. And that's not, and again, this is why it's all kind of ridiculous and why some people it might be easy for them to dismiss this and go, oh yeah, well, he can't actually do anything about the World Cup venues. And what is Infantino going to say? Oh, the president said we have to move games out of whatever city, so we're doing that. Again, logistically, it's an insane thing to even imagine. We're 258 days from the start of the World Cup. And time moves. It goes fast. Like if you're trying to do like two things, time goes fast and you're like, oh, I can't get these two things done. Imagine trying to get the logistics together for World Cups. And, teams have already picked their training bases and teams are already working out where they're going to be. Now, we don't have a draw yet. That's coming in December. But man, I mean, and that's a thing too, right? That's the timeline for moving games is December, not next year, not June, because you have to get the draw together. The draw is this massive event happening, by the way, in DC. Because why, Rob? Why is it happening in DC?
Tell
Because
me.
he wants it to happen in DC. And Johnny Infantino is bending over backwards to keep the president happy. Right. And it's
Shout out to Gianni Infantino. I mean, like, he wasn't everyone's favorite, the last few years, but 2025, he's gone to whole new levels of being in folks' pocket and bending the rules and letting the leaders of this country kind of have their way, so to speak. But you're talking about changing the logistics. Do you think that changing the cities is possible? When I saw that headline in those articles,
no.
I don't
No.
think that's possible, but yet it's another thing that journalists and everyone else has to pursue and
Yes,
check out
exactly.
and see what the implications are and like chase dead ends essentially when there's a lot more
Look,
important things going on.
I am not one of those people naive enough to think that politics and sports don't intersect, or that we can choose not to engage with politics while we're doing our sports, right? That stick to sports thing, that is bullshit. That's not real. Okay. Sports and politics are completely intertwined, but I don't like it when it's this forced thing, or when look, when you talk about like whether or not billionaires should get handouts to build stadiums, sports and politics, right? When you talk about players making individual stands on various issues, sports and politics, it comes with the territory, right? We can argue about whether they should do it and all that
Contract
stuff.
negotiation
Contract. Well, I mean, that's not politics. That's politics.
in a way. I
Contract-
mean, the workers, trying to get combine the what do you call, like,
Oh, you're talking about labor.
organized
You're talking about-
labor versus
okay.
ownership. Is the
Sure.
politics I was getting at.
Sure. That stuff, collective bargaining, absolutely has some political elements to it. But again, to sort of like throw this on top, like this is the, I'm sorry for this. Then I'm sorry for the analogy. Okay. And this is not meant to ultimately
All right.
disrespect, but it's
I got my seatbelt on.
the man came into the room and took a big dump and left. And now we're sitting here looking at it going, what are we supposed to do with this? Like, somebody going to clean this up? Like we didn't have this here. Now this is here and everybody is suffering for it. And it bothers me. Can we move on? Can we stop now?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can move on. Do we want to do a double bonus and talk about this leaked badge?
Yeah, let's do the badge. This is just all extra time stuff we're throwing under the heading of we're having fun on a Friday.
And so we'll preface this. Yesterday, I was sent a message talking about the Grand Rapids MLS Next Pro side, who's just been labeled as West Side Soccer, Pro Soccer. They're building Amway Stadium in Grand Rapids now. It's been a long time coming. There was, we talked about it earlier in the show. There was a great NPSL rivalry between Detroit and Grand Rapids. So it's a long awaited, what will this team look like? A little disappointed it's MLS Next Pro, but they're moving forward, and was sent a website that might not have been complete, might not have been ready for consumption. There was a video there, not able to pull that off before the access to the site was shut down, but we did pull the badge. So this is what we think will be the badge for AC Grand Rapids, the brand new independent MLS Next Pro side. Grand Rapids would be an exciting place. It's a big minor league town. They support the baseball team there. They support a very successful minor league AHL hockey team there. So it's a growing mid-sized city, one of the very few cities I think it's the only city in Michigan, one of the very few cities in the Midwest with positive population growth. So it's a great place to put a soccer team. But here's the badge. It's been a long time coming. I'll admit I was underwhelmed. Perhaps could grow on me. Your thoughts out there? What do you think about the AC Grand Rapids?
Yeah, so Mike Thomas saying this looks like MS Paint. If you have a thought about how this was generated, please go ahead and throw it in there, because I'm curious. Look, I will say this. From a traditional soccer perspective, I don't have a problem with this. Right? Like just the elements of it, the intertwined G and R for Grand Rapids. I don't know about AC. Again, we're getting into this thing where we've got sporting clubs and athletic clubs. And are you playing other sports? You got rugby over there? What are you doing? You got a polo team? I don't know what's going on. Which one are you? again,
I got a lightning bolt suggestion for a better name. It might be a little weird. Can I spitball one here off the cuff?
Sure. Okay, sure.
Just
Go ahead.
call
Yeah.
it the Grand Rapids. So the team is the
Oh.
Rapids, and they are the Grand Rapids.
No, that's terrible. I hate that. What I was going to say, sorry, Rob. Look, AC could also be in the Italian style, which is not athletic club. It's Associazione Calcio, right? But I don't think that's what's going on here. I don't think a team in Grand Rapids is like, we're being a calcio club, and that's what the AC means, and that's why we're called AC. They're biting the European vibe, which, again, this is just the way we do things. But to me, what this looks like it looks a little bit AI to me. And I'll tell you why. Like, specifically, it's the banner, right? It's where the AC Grand Rapids is. It's some of the edges, it's the flourish, it's the detail there, the lines. It's not bad. It just feels a little bit AI-y to me, or at least AI assisted. Those colors don't pop. I guess, are they going to be wearing gold? Are they wearing black and whatever that blue is?
It's a black
Obviously,
and a very dark blue. But yeah,
do have
I guess I
we
was
do have this
underwhelmed
too, okay.
because this is such a long. Yeah, this is the Amway Grand Rapids. You're not wrong with that. That's a good shout. But it's just this has been in the works for so long. I guess that, like, granted, this could be an incomplete version, just a placeholder for a website that wasn't supposed to be public yesterday. But
Yeah, somebody made it public by accident, and now if you go over, I was getting a maintenance message when you link to this in the Discord. I was trying to, like, where is it? It's a maintenance message. I don't see this, because you said, did you see the video? And I was like, well, there's no video there. It says maintenance, and then now it says forbidden. Now it's a 403 forbidden error. So it's not even saying the same thing. So clearly they went, oh wait, what? No, we weren't ready. What happened? I'm naked. Get out of here. Like, that was kind of what was going on there.
yeah, because with so much time in the works for this project, because it's been going on for years trying to get this thing happen. It was basically like we're talking about in the Cleveland conversation. It was like the regional oligarchs then put the money, so now it's actually happening. But the critiques in one of my group chats was saying that this looks like a generated FIFA team. Some other, I think producer Jenny said it looks like a Quidditch badge.
It does, yeah. It does look like a house of.
So I guess we'll reserve our full judgment and snootiness until, like, the actual official public reveal comes out. The video, it definitely seemed like a Michigan. Do you get pure Michigan commercials where you live? The tourist board stuff from Michigan?
Maybe occasionally, certainly online, you'll get
Tim
those
Allen.
those tourist ones. Is it Tim Allen?
It used to be, but now it's just like a
Oh.
kind of a different general deep voice guy that, soothing deep
Okay.
voice and stuff. And it was kind of like a tourism ad for Grand Rapids. And I thought at first you were talking about AI because it did hit all those, like, staples of, like, people playing in park. People like beer here. There's also, very cool looking people heading to the match,
Right.
So I was curious if when you mentioned AI, you thought about that video, but we shall see here.
Yeah, no, the other thing I'll mention, this came up in the Discord as well from Ryan. He said he couldn't find a registered or pending trademark for AC Grand Rapids. And usually you get that business done. Now, sometimes that's a way for things to leak, right? Because people are constantly trolling the trademark office website for stuff like this. I mean, I remember doing that for old MLS expansion clubs and things like that a long time ago, NASL. I haven't done it in a while, but I know you can go over there and search for this stuff. And he says he didn't find anything. Now, maybe that's user error. Shout out to Ryan. I don't know. Or maybe this is a placeholder, as you said, and this isn't actually what it's going to be.
But it's interesting to get a peek behind the curtain. Like I said, much anticipated, at least me being a Michigan soccer nerd, like having another pro team, great. Having another soccer stadium. I mean, Michigan can go from 0 stadiums to 2 in the same year, which is just a wild development. I got my fingers crossed, double crossed, hoping that something happens to where they reconsider and they come into the USL, because I would love a cross-state rivalry. But as it stands now, they're a MLS Next Pro side, which definitely doesn't
look,
put them in the same ecosystem as anything else going on here.
No, and this is the thing that because of the way that MLS is doing this, or next pro teams are jumping in, they're so separate from any of the other independent teams. It's really hard to imagine. I mean, Baley came on and said that the Cleveland team could have a rivalry with Crew 2. Now, Crew 2 does have a little bit more of a thing going than some of these other two second teams that are in MLS
Does that get your
Pro.
blood boiling? Does that boil your blood?
No, not really. Now look, if you are from Columbus and you just don't like Cleveland, you're from Cleveland, you don't like Columbus, then and this is the only expression of that rivalry that you can form, then maybe you lean into it. But I don't think they're going to, it's not going to become the talk of the town that Crew 2, the Capybaras, are going to be playing Cleveland of MLS Next Pro. And so it makes it easy for us to kind of just dismiss these MLS Next Pro independent teams and put them to the side and focus on the main event for us, which is USL expansion, because those teams are independent and playing in an independent league. Again, I'd love for all this stuff to be connected. I hope that's not the look. Grand Rapids, as you said, is a city that should be able to support high level minor league soccer, lower division soccer. I know, and I want this to succeed. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe they start in MLS Next Pro, find themselves chafing against that a little bit, and in a couple years' time, look for entry to USL.
And it's a good shout, Mike, saying there's always the Open Cup. Yeah, they kind of regionalize those first few rounds when teams jump in. So there could well be a Grand Rapids versus Detroit Open Cup match. But I think there's also some of these teams put fear into the hearts of the USL a little bit too. There's been an argument that, the rapid, extremely aggressive campaign that USL is running right now to touch on these 70 cities and try to get every mid-sized city in the United States on board with forming a club, or at least getting some sort of agreement in place to kind of like lock up that region. So they don't want the minor leagues or the lower leagues to be kind of occupied or take the oxygen out of the lower league system.
Yeah.
If more teams like Grand Rapids are building stadiums and more independent teams are occupying MLS Next Pro, you'd say that's like one of the biggest threats to the USL's plan.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, again, this is that
threat.
soccer wars, land grab element of it. We only have a couple of examples of this. So I don't know. I don't know that. So there definitely is like this thing about there should be no restrictions. And while we were doing the main show today, people were talking about territorial rights. And we do have a question in with USL about how territorial rights will be handled once Pro-Rel enters the picture. I don't know that you don't have any like obvious conflicts there, because territorial rights for USL apply across all leagues, as far as I'm aware.
As it is
right?
now,
Yeah, it's like you can't, if you start a team in Fresno and then somebody else is like, well, I want to do a USL League One team, and you already have a championship team, but I want to do a second team and I want to do USL League One. They're probably not going to say yes to that, right? They're protecting the market for that franchisee. And again, some of that stuff feels icky and yucky and we don't like it, but there's a reason that they do it. When we talk about cross league elements of this, US Soccer is in no position legally to prevent any professional club from launching in any market, because there's already a professional club there. So when St. Louis City launched, I had people that I was engaged with saying, why doesn't US Soccer stop this? Because there's already a team in St. Louis. There's already a soccer team in St. Louis. What do you mean they're going to put an MLS team in St. Louis? So that feels like something that a governing body should be involved in, protecting the existing team from the big bad MLS team coming to town. But again, legally speaking, two separate entities. You can't, if US Soccer said to St. Louis City or to MLS, no, you can't put a team there. There's already a soccer team in the city. They would sue US Soccer into oblivion. I mean, US Soccer is not going to put themselves in that position, is my point. Even, obviously there's MLS interests in US Soccer, and we could argue about that conflict of interest on some level, but man, that thing about how complicated it is to make it work in this idealized, romanticized, open model that people want is kind of missing from the conversation.
There is a difference between Pro-Rel and an open system, right? Exactly.
Yeah, well, in this case, absolutely, right? And I don't know that we have another example of a closed league with promotion or relegation in world football. It's possible it exists.
We're doing it our own way. We're inventing our own very unique kind of it's either, you can call it either a mousetrap or a rat's nest, perhaps.
Sure.
kinda
But
give
obviously, like,
everything
again, this is not an open system. This is USL bringing promotion and relegation within the ecosystem that they themselves control. We threw up that graphic when we did the investment discussion the other day because that's how they see it. We control all of this. We control USL Division 1, Championship, League 1, USL League 2, all of these things. These are all under our umbrella. We provide the structure. Those teams pay us their franchise fees. We control all of this. Right? This is not an open system. Somebody can't launch a team in a high amateur league, NPSL, and then say, well, we won our league. We get to go to USL League 1 because they're not USL teams. So are we going to figure out a way to crack this open, or are there too many barriers in place? Again, legally, corporate decision-making wise, things of that nature to prevent it. So as I said, beggars can't always be choosers, and we are kind of in a let's just see what happens with what we can get situation.
Yeah, trying to make our way through parsing through the parts, the ugly parts connected to the thing that we ultimately want in the game that we love. We shall see how that all pans out. At the beginning of a long play, I keep on feeling when we get to the end of episodes like this where we talk about the landscape, we are at the beginning of a long play here of dotting the map of American soccer clubs across the United States. We've had a bumper crop. We're almost going a double length episode today. While we're piling things on and adding things on, is there anything else, or are you ready to be done?
Man, I'm sure there will be something else. I'm sure we'll shut the show down, and I'll immediately have another thought that I want to share with everybody. But for the time being, no, let's end this thing. Again, go read the newsletter, Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. Thank you very much for everybody who is supporting the show. Our new members, remember, dot the map, get that out there. That is not just for us. That is for American soccer. We want to spread that word. We've got some very cool things coming up. We're working on some new projects. I don't want to give anything away. Some of the stuff is like almost like these USL teams, Rob. We're exploring things, but we don't, we don't necessarily have it all ready to go. We're like Grand Rapids. We're kind of like, I can't put it out there yet.
We don't want to leave our website exposed to the public, though, before we're too ready, though, perhaps.
No,
but
we do not.
a lot's going on. Thank you for all your contributions. New members, get into the Discord. There's an intro section for you to kind of introduce yourself. And then, of course, put your coordinates in the dot the map thread and get yourself on the morning kick around map. All right. So it's been a long one. It's been an exciting one, jam-packed, full of news about the American soccer landscape, but let's take our breath, enjoy the weekend ahead, and we'll come right back on Monday. But until then, enjoy your soccer.